Looking left this time. Still looking. Goes over the middle, and it is picked off. Picked off by the Cowboys in the end zone on the doorstep of a score.
Back to throw. Good protection. Runs up out of the pocket. Runs to the goal line. Leads it in. That's a great read by Dak Prescott. 2nd and 2 at the 4. Handoff. Inside. Alfred Morris. Walks the dog. Alfred Morris comes back to Washington and puts Dallas on top.
Not a pretty game for the Redskins this weekend. In a news conference Monday, head coach Jay Gruden said that Kirk Cousins, quote, sometimes puts too much pressure on himself, but expressed support for his quarterback after Pro Football Talk reported that certain players in the locker room have complained about Cousins' play, which they found to be hesitant and erratic. Gruden defended his quarterback, saying the team has total faith that Kirk will get it done. Cousins has thrown just 1 TD this season and 3 interceptions. Cousins said people respond with emotion, and the criticism is understandable after their 0-2 start. So you got to respect his response there, right, Coach? Herm Edwards in the house. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. We have quarterback issues already in Washington.
Let's get right into it, shall we? Is the criticism justified for Kirk?
Well, it's going to be justified in the fact that he's a quarterback. And any time the quarterback plays the way he's played in the last 2 weeks, he's going to get some criticism. Now, with that being said, it shouldn't be left at his feet. And you look at this football team, they paid a lot of money defensively to upgrade it, and right now they sit at 27th, giving up about 29 points a game, really worse than what they were last year. But Kirk Cousins, when you look at how he started last year, first 2 games, he threw 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They were 1-1. Right now they're 0-2. He's thrown 3 interceptions and 1 touchdown. And so he's going to get a lot of criticism. But Kirk Cousins is really a guy that, when you think about him last year, this kind of really magnifies who he is. They were a 5-7 football team with 4 games left, and he caught fire. They win 4 in a row, they win the division at 9-7. And that's what you kind of remember. And then the playoff game kind of gets a little marred and all, you know, like, and it kind of, well, okay. So everyone's excited about these guys this year. They're coming in. When I got Josh Norman, they're going to fix their defense. And we're all excited about Washington. But this is who Kirk Cousins is. He'll have some hot moments where he'll play well. The problem I have with this whole scenario about the locker room, we saw this happen before with Robert Griffin. Now, he brought some of that on himself as well. But we saw this before. It festered. And it became the, you know, really the talking point. And everything else gets massaged. You know, when other players aren't playing up to their capability, it's always the quarterback. Okay, let's put on the quarterback. You know, and I've been in enough locker rooms, you don't want that. And Coach has to put a stop to it, because this is the thing that happened before with Robert Griffin.
Well,
Yes,
it's
sir.
interesting that you went there. It's interesting that you went there, Coach Herm Edwards. See, this is why I love you, because even when you don't realize it, you're looking out for a brother, because you just threw a softball up there for me that I was waiting to swing. You know, Molly Wood, Max Kellerman, don't y'all notice how understanding Jay Gruden appears to be? You know, he sits up there and he talks about Kirk Cousins, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, but he's getting his numbers. He's thrown for nearly 700 yards. He's thrown for over 300 yards in the last game. You know, he seems a bit tentative, a bit protective of his numbers. You know, indicative of somebody who's trying to get that new contract. Y'all know what I'm saying? You understand where I'm coming from here? And the thing is that in the throes of all of that, do you see how understanding Jay Gruden is? But how he picked apart and dissected RG3, threw him under the bus, told everybody. I mean, he didn't just sit there and say RG3 was playing bad. Refresh my memory, Coach. Didn't he tell you? Didn't he dissect everything from the 3-step drop to the 5-step drop, and how he wasn't reading through his progressions and all? I mean, this dude went, am I lying, Coach?
No, you're telling the truth.
He went into detail. He went into detail, y'all, about how bad RG3 was. But with Kirk Cousins, oh no, no such thing, never that, never that. Why would I do that? Let me sit up there and just say how Kirk Cousins is just struggling right now. But he'll get it turned around. It's our job to make sure he gets it turned around. But when it was RG3, I want to rake him through the coals and throw him under the bus. Jay Gruden, I wonder why that is, bro. I wonder why that is.
Well, I mean, listen, if you come in and you're as the head coach, you're tied to your guy and you run another guy out of town, you want him to succeed. Obviously, I would say this about Kirk Cousins. The jury is still out on him, which is why he got a jury is still out contract. He did catch fire at the end, Coach. I didn't know why he was selected over RG3 as the guy in Washington. I didn't think he'd ever provided evidence that he kind of looked like he should be a good quarterback somehow. Some guys look, by the way, we're going to get into Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota soon enough, and I think some of that goes on with Winston right now over Mariota. Some guys looked the part more than the other guy, the way you imagine a quarterback's supposed to behave, but actually didn't get the results. But then he caught fire at the end of the season. He wound up with the second highest QBR among qualifiers. Not saying it's a perfect stat, but it's better than like passer rating, for example. Second highest QBR in the NFL last year. So there was reason to think he had progressed, but also enough well, we see him dinking and dunking. Can he throw it down the field? Can he do it, Coach, as you say, consistently?
Yes.
So he got the jury is still out contract. Here's $20 million, a lot of money, 1 year, right? We ain't giving you a long-term deal. And he's like, well, good, I want to prove it and da-da-da. And so far, Stephen A., he's not proving it. And even if he does catch fire here and there, he's just reinforcing at least what many of us feel, that he's not consistent enough to be an elite quarterback and to command a kind of long-term franchise player contract.
Stephen A. brought up a point, and it's a great point. And I remember talking about it last year, I believe, with Stephen A. We talked about how they handled Robert Griffin. And I think, if anything, and I'm going to give Jay the benefit of the doubt, I think he learned something from that. Because he got called out, too. Okay, and I think when you deal with the quarterback, regardless of how good he's playing or how bad he's playing, that's one of those conversations where that's kind of talked about in the back room, not publicly, because you're tied to the quarterback. When you're the head coach, that's your guy. Regardless of how bad he's playing, that is your guy. You got to protect him a little bit, because when you call him out publicly and the locker room hears that, all bets are off. Then players just feel like they can comment on it. And that's never good. When you got a locker room that's divided against the quarterback, you got a problem.
Notice how like Washington, this seems to come up, where players feel enabled versus the coach, and play like already week 2, there's a vote of no confidence from players in the locker room. It's being widely reported and everything. And before with Robert Griffin III, it was the same sort of thing, where the players seemed enabled by the owner to bypass it's always a problem. And what I always say about this, a fish rots from the head down. Dan Snyder's organization always seems to have something going on like this.
Well, that's fair. That's fair, Max. But the point that I want to make sure that we articulate here is this. Even though both the RG3 era and the Kirk Cousins era has players venting about their quarterback, with RG3, some of it was self-inflicted because of his ego. Yes. But then Jay Gruden took it to another level. So why is it happening with Kirk Cousins, who's not like that? There can only be one reason, Coach, and you know what that reason is?
Talk to me.
A lot of guys inside that locker room are probably feeling like Kirk Cousins is too protected, too insulated, too cushioned by Jay Gruden, and they resent that. And that might be what's going on here, because there's nothing about Kirk Cousins' personality that generates this. This is about Jay Gruden and his willingness to be protective of Kirk Cousins, but he wasn't willing to do that for RG3.
Good point.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Certainly.
Point well made.
When we come back, Stephen A's favorite quarterback, Jay Cutler, making news for all the wrong reasons. Herm's sticking around to react to it. Yes, we need you in this conversation. Yes, a voice of reason. That's next.
You don't know me,
Another rough night for Jay Cutler, who after fumbling the ball Monday night, injured his throwing hand. The Bears training staff had looked at his hand, and he initially stayed in, but he eventually exited after throwing an interception with 36 seconds remaining in the third. He said he was having trouble gripping the ball. Meanwhile, Browns quarterback Josh McCown, he took another route Sunday as he injured his shoulder and decided to stay in the game. Here's McCown on why.
I think it's just not wanting to not be out there with your guys. I got a dad and an older brother who I know get up and go to work, and sometimes they don't feel great, and they go and they grind, and I got 2 little boys that they're playing football now, and they get hit and they get banged up, and trying to teach them what toughness means, and so for me, it's those things that, and just knowing the window for me right now, and understanding that I don't want to miss snaps. I don't want to be out, you know, without my guys. So, you know, for me, it's just, you know, unless it's, you know, going to fall off, let's try to make it work and make it go.
First Take is brought to you by Infinity. Empower the drive.
The people have spoken, and we appreciate you weighing in here. We asked you earlier in the show, did you agree with Jay Cutler leaving the game last night? And the results are in. Stephen A. Smith, 58% agreeing with you in saying no. How do you feel about it?
I'm surprised it's that low.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I think that's closer than I anticipated.
I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't give a damn whether people agree with me or not. I say what I mean what I say. Jay Cutler's a joke because he's not a leader. And as a quarterback in the NFL, with what coaches like Herm Edwards, what aficionados, what commentators like Max and others swear by is not just one's talent, but one's ability to lead from that position, which he has shown none of. In 10 years, he's made the playoffs just one time, all right? And he quit in an NFC championship game. As far as I'm concerned, he quit last night. Nobody was surprised about it. And you had some dude on a pup list, ain't even playing, that got in his face because he's questioning his willingness to go all out like the rest of his teammates would. They're saying this about the quarterback. A pup list player got in the face of your franchise quarterback. That says it all.
Yeah,
I don't care what anybody says.
sure,
I don't care what they think.
Jay Cutler is low-hanging fruit for everybody in football after the NFC Championship game, you know, and he quits again, and you see he'll quit once, he'll do it again, especially if, as Ryan Clark mentioned, it's a loser limp. In other words, Coach, it was a convenient time to get hurt. You make more out of it than you thought. But I am surprised that 58-42. I thought it'd be something like 80-20.
I know.
Yeah, and you know, and I think a lot of fans, you know, they look at it and go, well, hey, you know, if you're hurt, you're supposed to come out. Hey, look, this is professional football. These guys get paid to be football players. This is not college football, not high school football. That's a different mentality. Professional football, this is a profession.
Well,
And you're only as good as your reputation in the locker room. If those guys are going to follow you, as Stephen A. said, if you're going to play quarterback. You're only good as that reputation.
well, Coach, and by the way, the people out there who disagree, like the 58 to 42%, it's because they're along the thinking of Molly and Max, which is to be respected. You're thinking about the talent that this guy has, and you're saying, okay, how could he possibly be the worst? So, of course, you're going to take that position because that makes sense. I'm saying it has nothing to do with his talent. It's that he's such a depressing figure. He sucks the life out of the people around him, which is why Chicago's not going to go anywhere with him. That's why I call him the worst.
I'll tell you something
else.
else.
It has nothing to do with his talent.
I still don't think he's the worst, but I will say this. When you're 27 and you have a big arm and you have still the potential for upside, people will have a longer leash.
Sure.
When you're 33 and you're in decline and you're on a bad team and you're doing this stuff, boy, there's a leash.
I want to know how many of the supporters went to Vanderbilt or
all I know
Chicago.
is he has that demeanor about himself when things are not going good, like he's sucking lemons. That's never good. That's never a good look on your face, is
We
it?
don't want it. We want to turn it into lemonade, like you
Chicago will
always
be,
do, Herm Edwards.
Chicago, the city of Chicago will be better
Bye,
off
everybody.
without
See you
him.
tomorrow.
Good riddance.